I've also just feel very like I'm in the room of people that are my people, right? They talk my language. They have the heart for people that I feel that we're called to have. That also being said, it's probably likely I'll put my foot in my mouth unintentionally, only because I'm not as familiar with some of the language and some of the terms that are maybe, so in my world as a chiropractor, I'll give you an example. We prefer to call it the chiropractic adjustment. In the medical literature, it's called the manipulation. I just hate that word, right? So when I hear the word manipulation, my blood, I kind of like shirk at that, right? So I just apologize if I say something that's just out of my ignorance to the field. But I have wild respect. My mother was a master's of social work, and she actually runs a department for the University of South Dakota. I share that because she went to school while I was a kid, like from 8 to 12, and I joked about it the other day. I was like her test subject, right? She'd come home. I think I spent more time in therapy those years than anybody else, even though I don't think anything was wrong, but we just went along, you know? And so it either helped or it hurt. And then, of course, this issue of what we're here to talk about is very personal. Lost my sister. Both of my sisters have attempted suicide. I watched my mom drive herself to the edge of suicide, living on a bunch of medications, and still is till this day. And so I just am thankful and grateful for the work that you do. That being said, today I'll share kind of my area of expertise and maybe a little bit different perspective. I would want you to know, as we started, and I was talking last night to some people in Toby, and I know you've had chiropractors here over the years, and that's, a thing, but our profession, the profession I practice on a daily basis as a chiropractor, is so well aligned. Our hands are tied in the sense that we're not allowed to prescribe drugs. I wouldn't want to prescribe drugs, but, through our scope of practice, we're not allowed. And I think one of the biggest benefits of that is it drives you down the road of, well, then what else is there, right? Since that's off the table for us, then what else is there? And so, and I tend to talk fast, and I tend to move a lot. And so I apologize for that, but I don't think I can change that today. So one of my, I don't know if it's a favorite quote, but it's a quote that I think tells a little bit of a story from Alice in Wonderland, of course. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? That depends a good deal on where you want to get. I don't much care. Then it doesn't matter which way you go. The reason I like this is because, for example, a patient that says, I just want to feel better. Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. I just want to get out of pain. Well, we can put you in bed and dope you up with pills and you won't feel a thing. So when we say a statement like we want to get better, it's important that we help the patient have context around that. And I want them to understand and put definitions on what getting better means, right? Not just feeling better. As a lot of us know that you can be very ill and feel fine. We all have people, probably loved ones, that have felt fine and had cancer, that felt fine and had heart disease, that felt fine the day before and dropped dead. A more simple example, you have a cavity and you're unaware, right? So our conscious experience, what we feel, is very limited in reality of what's going on. So we're going to go into some stuff. This would be my perspective, right? That we're designed to heal, right? Every time I look at a picture of that, I have 2 children myself. Every time I look at a picture of that, I'm reminded that we're designed to heal. No doctor does that. No pill does that. Matter of fact, the best advice we can give to a mother, to a family that's raising a child, is don't mess it up. Right? Just don't interfere. Don't jack it up. My goodness, we warn moms to be careful how much tuna they're eating because there might be mercury in it, right? That could mess up the development, or the thalidomide of the 60s and thalidomide babies. There's a lot of examples historically of what's happening. But for some reason, after baby's born, we believe, okay, we'll take it from here. Right? And within seconds of their birth, or often during the birth, we're already medicating them. We wonder why our children are the sickest they've ever been in the history of the world, why it's the first generation that our children are expected to die younger than their parents. It's because we're poisoning them from before birth often. In 9 months, the wisdom within the body takes 2 half cells, joins them together, builds eyes, kidneys, livers, lungs, hearts that beat. It's amazing. And we just don't appreciate, this room does, of course, but we just don't appreciate that. And so, as timely as this was, on Tuesday this week, I'm with a patient, and we see everybody. We run a wellness-based office in Orlando, Florida. And Liam is a little 8-month-old boy. Well, I take care of his mom and dad, and I see him as well. But the parents come from more of a traditional medical background, right? And so the dad comes in, and he says, "Doc, I've got bad news." I said, "Okay." He said, "Liam has been diagnosed with ADD." I said, "Liam? Like, your son?" "Yeah." I said, "How old is he?" "He's 8 months." I wish I was joking. I said, I thought he was, he goes, "Yeah, they said he can't focus." I know, I promise I'm not a comedian. Like, there's no catch, this is real. And they want to give him drugs. And the reason I even share this with a room of professionals that of course would never do that, but number one is, we interface with this, and the greatest gift I can give this patient is an understanding of the wisdom within. This isn't like a philosophy talk, it's just reality. Scientifically, we call it homeostasis, right? We call it the negative feedback loop. We call it, it's the same reason this room could be 45 degrees yesterday. However, what was the actual temperature? I did see like an icicle form. How cold was it, right? But somehow our body stayed at 98.6 degrees or thereabouts. And if we would have been to the temperature of the room, we all would have died. And we didn't need a pill to do that. And so it's really, really important that we remember this. Probably my statement I use the most to help break people's eyes open a little bit is this, out of the Journal of the American Medical Association, 2009. We all need to be aware of this because this is a starting point for a shift in perspective. Dr. Charles Kelo is a medical doctor. Dr. Larson's a PhD, master's in public health. The possibility that healthcare might cause net harm is increasingly important given the sheer magnitude of the modern healthcare enterprise. Serious review of these issues will likely challenge assumptions about the value of many current healthcare practices. This is important for all the obvious reasons. But if you think about the amount of money and time and energy and resources we spend on, quote, healthcare, and to think that the net of that is likely negative, is there a rule? Do you try not to swear here? I didn't get the official breakdown. Can you swear a little bit? Holy shit. Holy shit. 18% of the GDP? We do all of this stuff in the name of healthcare, and it's likely making us worse. What the? My stepdad was a fireman. That would be like saying the firemen came to town, and ever since, we've had more fires and more deaths. Be odd. We'd say, time out, it doesn't seem to be going as planned. Okay, so this is just the reality of how dangerous the model is. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, although this is, again, another of my favorite quotes. I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if they only knew they were slaves. Like all of you in practice, we always have patients that are reaching out. I had a patient this morning, or not even a patient, a friend in the West Coast who's struggling. He's like, "Well, what would you do?" Right? And I said, "This is what I would do." And he's like, "Oh, that's kind of scary to me." I said, "I'll tell you what's scary. Walking into that system is scary. Walking into that system that hasn't proven to be beneficial to us, net harm, I'm not interested in that. I'd rather trust the wisdom within my body." Now, it gets a little bit worse, and I'm going to just hit us with some stats, some statistics. You're probably aware of these, but just as to frame it for us. So we hear about all the medical errors, and I have many different versions of this, but these are all published medical journals relating different things. Rarely do they add them all up. We hear the one about adverse drug reactions, oftentimes 106,000, but when you add up medical errors and bed sores and infections and malnutrition and outpatients and unnecessary surgeries, this is on an annual basis, you're talking almost 1 million people a year being killed, and that's more than cancer and heart disease. So put that in perspective. Now, I'm going to talk more about cancer and heart disease, not because that's what we're here for, but it's really important we understand the relationship between our lifestyle and those things. Just some other statistics. We're ranked 37th in healthcare in the United States. Our system ranks 72nd as the most effective. We spend 450% more than we do on the military. We're last place in wealthiest nations. We're 34th in life expectancy. We're last in infant and maternal mortality in industrialized nations. 70% of our kids take a prescription drug, a person takes them, and 25% of our kids are on a prescription drug. You've probably seen this 100 times, but this is the reality, right? Unfortunately. U.S. life expectancy has dropped for the 3rd year in a row. The last time that happened was in 1915 to 1918. They're attributing it, as you see there, mostly to suicides and opioids. Like, and I know I'm talking to a room of woke up people, for sure, but this is where we sit. This is out of the British Medical Journal. A lot of people, I share this because people don't realize it. So heart disease, number one killer. This is a couple years old, but it's out of BMJ. Cancer, 585. Medical error, 251,000. This is conservative. This is how they published it. However, the reasons it's in red there, it says, however, we don't even count those because medical error is not recorded on death certificates. So people say, if it was so bad, how come I haven't heard about it? Well, shit. If it was all so bad, why didn't they talk about any of the studies we see? I mean, we got to get, I know this room, we get over that. But with patients, right? Like, but doc, if it was really bad, why would the FDA approve? We saw the reality of that yesterday. But so it is that bad, right? This is where our kids sit right now. 20 years ago, in 86, chronic disease was 12.8. We're now at 54% of our children are diagnosed with a chronic disease. That's not genetic. I know we talked about that, or we heard more about genetics yesterday. That's not the game in town. That's not where we're going to figure this out. You guys have studied all the work. Bruce Lipton's a great example of that. It's the environment that we put the genes in that turn them on or off. That's where the story needs to be told. You're not going to change the genes anyway. Don't waste your time. Focus on what you can do for the environment of them. If you think that our children, that 54% of them are expected to be diagnosed, and by the way, chronic disease means medicated for the rest of their life. No hope that they would get better. No hope that they could heal. Here's your label, forever. That's right from the CDC. Here's why it gets frustrating for us, right? So this is out of New England Journal of Medicine. Proportion of commonly used treatments supported by good evidence. None of this would surprise you guys, but as you can see, most of them, the largest chunk of that pie, unknown effectiveness. Mother chunk, likely ineffective. A very small portion, only 13% of the crap we're doing on a daily basis in, quote, healthcare is actually likely to be effective. And I would argue it's probably lower than that. It's just that the fraudulent science supporting that just hasn't been exposed yet. This is just it's not worth the laugh, it's sad, right? But you guys, right? These are our experts telling us, right? The best cigarettes, right? 9 out of 10 doctors recommend that cigarette. Cocaine for your toothache. These are the throat doctors. Old Gold's best for your throat. You can't make it up. However, and again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but to help our patients, what are we doing right now that's going to be as laughable in 50 years? And we all pray we see that day. We see the awakening of that to happen. You guys know Dr. Marcia, right? So she was the New England Journal of Medicine editor for 20 years. It's simply no longer possible to believe much of the clinical research that's published or rely on the judgment of trusted physicians or authoritative medical guidelines. I take no pleasure in this conclusion, which I reached slowly and reluctantly over my 2 years as an editor in the 2 decades rather, as an editor in the New England Journal of Medicine. And if we think through, this is why this matters so much. If you think through the progression of that, because that ends up me, patient in the room with the doctor, and they're giving them medical advice not based upon these things that they're saying, don't trust that because it's likely bought, paid, fraudulent, whatever words you prefer to use, lies, deception, greed. All of those things. Number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States, medical debt. 62% of medical is cause of bankruptcy. Number 2 is home, can't pay their home. The number one reason people can't pay their home is medical debt. It's literally bankrupting the nation. And not working. Any other business, like somebody was talking about the other day, I don't remember which one it was, maybe it was last night at dinner, if we applied the system, if we tried to apply the system of mental health that they do right now, if another country tried to do that, we'd call it criminal. What I'm describing here, if it's any other business you'd look at, you'd say they're doing what and they're hurting how many, right? And they have no controls against that. Opioids, we all know that, unfortunately. It's the number one cause of death for Americans under the age of 50 right now. Kills more people than heart disease and cancer. Yeah. In that age group. This is probably one of the most important quotes regarding that. Many of you know, of course, Dr. Tom from the CDC. His quote, "We know of no other medication routinely used for non-fatal condition that kills patients so frequently. Patients given just a single course can become addicted for life. Doctors and patients must simply become fully cognizant of this immense risks. Most studies, of course, very little amount of time on them. You've seen what's happening here. This is a older doctor out of Harvard, right? The wisdom of the body is responsible for 90%. I would probably say it's higher than that. I'm just using his quote. Of the hope of the patients to recover. The body has a super wisdom that's in favor of life rather than death. This is the power that we depend on for life. All doctors are responsible for letting their patients know of this great force working within them. I'm thinking about, of course, I think everybody that was here last night or with that last speaker last night, was incredible to hear her story and her testimony. And we all probably heard different parts of that were powerful for us. What I heard was hope, when she got hope given to her. When somebody believed in her that said, I believe you can get better. Right? Now, some people would say, how do you have the authority to say that? What do you mean? If you're going to, I'm just saying in this room, but just in general, people say, oh, don't tell them they can get better. Bullshit. What? Tell them they can't? What gives you that authority? And I'm not yelling at you guys wouldn't do that. But that's what's crazy to me about it. Don't give them it's not false hope. If their heart is beating, they can heal. What point should we have told the woman last night, oh, well, it's been 19 years, and you've been on crack, and you've been addicted, and you've been in jail, and you've been. So I guess in your case, you can't. Until she did. Our job is to tell them, yes, you can. I don't know if you will, but you can. As long as you are still breathing. And that's why I take it so serious. I spend most of my time probably just telling patients they can heal. Okay? So here we go. I love this statement. A healthy lifestyle is more important than all medical technology in the world. Emory University. It's been a few years, 87. This isn't news. But we've got to stop waiting for the next breakthrough, the next diagnosis. And I know you guys won't even care about that, but that's where our patients go, right? They're going to figure it out. When they mapped the genome, that was the biggest joke ever. When they mapped the genome out, the conclusion was, oh shit, there's not what we thought in there. That doesn't account for it. I get a little fired up. The problem is we don't give this the level of appreciation that it should have. When 90% of the diseases that we have are diseases of lifestyle, but it gets lip service on the back end, then we've missed the boat. We'll always be behind the 8 ball. I was talking to somebody, remember that old poem? It's old, 1905, I think, written. It's called the Ambulance, or the Ambulance Down in the Valley. If you've ever heard that, it's worth the read. It's what you'd think, right? And I almost read it today. It's in the book I wrote, but all these people were driving off the cliff, and so of course there's a lot of sick and injured and damaged people down in the valley. And the thought of the day was we have to help these people, right? So build the hospitals, build the clinics, build the ambulances. Nobody thought at the time, right? Put up a couple signs, curve ahead, slow down, let's prevent it. And so we've spent all our time, money, and energy. I did the math one time. In the United States, we spend about $4.22 on prevention. When we look at the amount we spend on medical care, that's about maybe a bag of apples. And we call that wellness and prevention. Most of what healthcare calls prevention is not prevention at all. It's early detection. That's not prevention, folks. Finding your cancer after it's there is not prevention. Understand that. The biggest cancer institutes in the world have never prevented one case of cancer. They detect it after it's there. It's important that we understand that reality. So we can give this the appreciation of what it is. Now, the reason I tend to get a little bit fired up, this is me. It's actually my sister who attempted to kill herself when she was 16, pills overdosing. That's myself. I was training for the 1986 Olympics as a boxer. That was my whole goal and dream. I'm a little white kid from South Dakota, but I could fight pretty good. So the way it works in boxing, you go to Colorado Springs, and that's where you train. So I was out there training. The top 4 fight off. The winner goes to the Olympics. I'm out there, and I get sick. I didn't understand a model different than typical medical care, right? So I do what you do. You call mom and you say, what do I do? She says, go to the doctor. I go to the doctor. They put a scope down here and a scope up there. I had precancerous lesions all throughout my digestive system. I said, I had no symptoms up to that point. I said, what do I do? They said, you take these 2 drugs. You know the story. I said, for how long? They said, for the rest of your life. So I took the drugs. It shut down my digestive system. I went from 165 to 245 pounds. All right? I went in every 6 months. I got my scans redone. My lesions were either getting worse or staying the same. Then one day I met one of those quacks, right? One of those crazy chiropractors. He said two things to me that changed my life. He said, Ben, I don't think your body forgot how to digest food when you were 19, and I don't think the cause to your problem is a deficiency in a drug. And I will sit here and I will tell you that till I'm blue in the face and I die, and I know I'm preaching to the choir. There is no disease that exists in the history of the world that is due to a deficiency in a man-made chemical, period. Ever. There are effects that those things can have on physiology, but you do not have a deficiency. I may be in a better mood if I drink a bottle of whiskey, but that does not mean I have a whiskey deficiency. If I'm tired, so I snort a line of cocaine as a little pick-me-up, that doesn't mean that I had a deficiency in cocaine or that cocaine is the cure for tiredness. Yet we act like that and we think like that because the drug has an effect and we go, I feel better until I don't, until it kills me, until I'm addicted, until I'm destroyed. And then I go, why didn't somebody tell me this? Okay, so I met that doctor. Now in my case, through chiropractic and natural health, I had pressure on the nerves that went to my digestive system. He got the pressure off that. I got off the drugs I'd been on for 3.5 years. I got off them in 1 week. I lost 67 pounds, restored my health, restored my life. I decided to become a chiropractor. When I started in chiropractic school, one of the things you do is dissections, right? Human cadavers, right? Or, cadavers. And I remember when we did that dissection and we opened up the human body. I mean, I'd studied the books and I'd gone through all the pre-stuff that we all go through. But when I saw the inside of a human body, like when I cracked it open, if you will, I don't know how to say it other than I feel like I saw God. In that exact moment, I realized the greatest thing I can do for a patient is help them honor the body that they've been given. I can't heal them. I can't cure them. I can't fix them. I'm not supposed to. All right? Help them understand how incredible they're already designed. All right? We're not here to figure it out. We're here to honor, steward, and care for it. And so, changed my life. Changed my life, right? Now, you guys saw this. Why does this matter for us? Because you guys have seen this. Okay, so just in the last couple of weeks, Walmart, CVS, Walgreens pulled Zantac. This is why I think this is interesting. So everybody's been aware of that, right? They pulled Zantac off. There's two stories here. There's two parts to this. One is ingredients in them that are carcinogenic, right? That's part one. And then another study that says people that take these drugs actually they have increased chances, a significant, like 250% increase in stomach cancer. They tell you to take the drugs. That's what they told me. Take these drugs so you don't get cancer. Oops, sorry, caused cancer. There's a study that they did with PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, acid reflux drugs, and they took people that didn't have acid reflux, gave them the drugs for 3 weeks, took them off, guess what? They all had acid reflux. If you could get that right there for a second, that explains the medical model. If I give you something and take it away from you a few weeks later, and now you have the thing that I gave it for, that should we see this in the depression studies, we see this in antidepressant, it's the story, because you're manipulating the body. It's the same thing. Give you a blood pressure drug, give you a cholesterol drug, take you off of it, what happens? It spikes. Why? Because you've manipulated the physiology. Right? If I snort 1 line of cocaine every morning, I'm going to need 2 eventually. Don't take these sound bites out. I don't want, when I snort my cocaine, I'm just kidding, right? So here's why I'm sharing this. I've had patients, right, in just the last month who say, Doc, I was taking that. Did you see the study? I said, yeah, I saw it. And they immediately just threw it away. Because now they have new information. Right? They were believing the lie. Now they found out there's cancer stuff in it. And they said, never mind, now I'll do something else. I think this is so important for us and why we have to spend a time trying to crack our patients' heads a little bit, right? Forgive that example there. To try to get them to think differently, have a different perspective, know that they can heal. And sometimes it takes them just knowing the effects of them. But here's what we spend most of our time, down here on the bottom of all of the symptoms, but not dealing with the things above it. Inactivity, deep visceral fats, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance. This is my world. This is where I live all day long for people. Okay? I could give 2 craps about the names that you've given, the symptoms at the end. Most of them are just a conglomerate of different, a constellation of symptoms that we call a disease that doesn't really exist. Bring me a pile of fibromyalgia. It doesn't exist. I don't mean, listen, you guys know the world. I'm not saying they're not suffering. They've biopsied the tissues of fibromyalgia. You know what it looks like? Normal tissue. But we have to appreciate the body's ability to heal. The word that's probably most common associated with this, right? And I think this room would probably go there with it is, vitalism or neo-vitalism. This idea, this understanding that we're more than the sum of our parts. The word has come up a lot with people I've been talking this weekend about, a mechanistic view versus more of a vitalistic view. There's more to us than our parts and pieces. Live body, dead body, same parts and pieces. Live body, dead body, same parts and pieces. One has the spark of life, one doesn't. You have that spark of life. That's the greatest tool any doctor, any physician, anybody can have. Somebody was talking the other night about what they call I call every one of my patients doctor. Every one of my patients, I call them doctor. When I walk in the room, hey doctor, how are you? Why are you calling me doctor? I'm not a doctor. Are you kidding me? You got the greatest doctor, greatest pharmacy right now inside of you healing you. I don't know, the last number I heard, that I've said for a long time, was 7 trillion cells. Now I heard we got 70 trillion cells. I don't know, a lot. A lot. Listen to this. In all history of all mankind, all the best minds haven't made one single cell. You get that? But in the 20 minutes I've been talking, your body's made millions. And even if they could make it, even if they could build the mitochondria or print it on a 3D printer or whatever, right? Grow an ear on the back of a mouse, I don't care. Even if you could do that, and you can't, they don't know how to say life. All right? And we take it for granted. We get an illusion because we can describe something, because we can look and say, heartbeat starts at day 22. Then we feel smart. Not you guys, but right? Look how smart I am. You're describing something far more intelligent. That doesn't make you intelligent. Just because I look at the tree and I go, look it's blooming. Doesn't mean I know how. How does the heart beat? How do the bones in your ear know to stop? It's the only bone in your body that's the same size when you're born as you are when you die. All the other bones grow. How do those bones know? How do your fingers know to stop growing at that length? I'm not saying we don't even need to figure it out. That's the blessing. We don't need to figure it out. Honor it, take care of it. We got way more things to spend our time and money on than trying to figure out something that we didn't create. All right? Now, super simple example for us, guys, but just to go with it, right? So this plant, it only needs a few things, right? Now, it would make no sense, of course, to prop up the leaves, plant them green, and say, hey, good, you got your plant back, right? Let's just say it needs some water, maybe some sunlight, maybe some nutrition in the dirt. I don't know. I don't raise a lot of plants. But here's the deal. For example, let's just say it needed some water. Let's just use that. So we gave it some water. If it's not too far gone, what's going to happen? Right? It's going to perk back up to life. You're not going to call Channel 6 News and say, we've had a resurrection, you need to come down and do a story. We had a plant come back to life. It's amazing. You just expect it because that's what it's designed to do. Many of us, and certainly our patients, have more faith in that plant's ability to heal than we do our bodies. And that, my friends, is a disgrace. So if you can look at that plant and say, well, yeah, a plant could probably get better if you gave it what it needs, I assure you, your body is well. But we have to give it what it needs. Or stop poisoning it. It's kind of both sides of the coin. But now here's us, right? My dad was a fairly thrifty guy, I guess. That would be maybe the nice word to use. And I remember, so he's like a dollar store shopper kind of guy, right? And he was all proud he found a bunch of really old cans of like beef stew. Dinty Moore beef stew. Is that still a thing? Okay. I won't make you raise your hand if you've eaten it in the last month, right? So my dad found these, and he had this little dog named Pepper. So he's like, hey, I like beef stew. I bet my dog would like this beef stew, so I'll start feeding. It's cheaper than dog food at the time. So he started feeding his dog Dinty Moore beef stew. All right? Yeah. Dogs aren't supposed to eat Dinty Moore beef stew, just so you know. So his dog started getting real sick. So his dog's having accidents. I'll save the details. So my dad took the dog to the vet. What did the vet say? Terry, what are you feeding this thing? Oh, you'd be so proud of me, Doc. Just like me. We sit down and have Dinty Moore beef stew at the end of the night. He goes, sir, that's not what your dog's supposed to eat. So my dad changed what he ate, and it went away. Enter a person. Hey, Doc, I'm tired. Hey, Doc, I don't feel good. Hey, I can't sleep, sleeping too much. Don't feel good, pooping too much, pooping too little. Blood pressure's up, blood pressure's low. Right? And then we just give, of course, preaching to the choir, we just give the drug without a massive appreciation for the body's ability to heal. Mostly, the patients never even tried, right? So I have a person that, how does this play out in real practice? A person with headaches. All right, so she had migraine headaches 2 to 3 times a week for 2 years and was prescribed Imitrex. Imitrex is a horrible drug. Horrible drug. Horrible drug. Blows people's hearts and brains up. Listen to this one. You want to know what? By the way, if it gives you a cerebral hemorrhage or a stroke, discontinue. I will make sure to do that when I'm dead. But doc, it can't be the Diet Coke. It could. Yeah, it could be. But I've smoked for 20 years and I'm fine. It can't be that. So when she stops the Diet Coke, within 2 weeks her migraines go away. I've had patients get out of wheelchairs that were diagnosed with MS. I've had people with cancer. My dad, stage 4 cancer, given 2 weeks to live, will reverse his cancer in 21 days. I know for some people, and maybe in this room, I know that's my world, but I'm just telling you, we have to have that appreciation and understanding for the power and wisdom that's inside of the body. But because compared to that, I'll put my results up against that any day of the week, right? Right? Do flies cause garbage? This is what happens to us. We're walking in. So I keep having to update this. So the average person, if you're a germaphobe, no reason to be, but if you are a germaphobe, the average person, you, ingests or gets in about 2.9 billion germs a day. A day. I remember we traveled one time, and my son, we were in Chicago O'Hare, right, busy airport, and my son was having a sandwich, and the piece of turkey fell out, and it went like splat on the floor of an airport, and I was like, oh, don't eat that. And he went for it, and before I could get there, just throws that piece of turkey in his mouth. So I assure you, if germs kill, he would be dead, okay? What am I saying? It's the resiliency of our bodies, right? If I decided right now, hey, for the next week and a half, I'm going to sleep 2 hours a night, I'm going to live on Ho-Hos, Twinkies, whiskey, and cigarettes, and I came back here 10 days from now, would it surprise you if I wasn't feeling good? Would it be weird it wouldn't be a surprise if I was sick, would it? Am I maybe a little more susceptible to, quote, the flu or whatever, interject whatever you want to say? But we have to have, right, it's the seed in the soil conversation, right? I'll give you a great example, H. pylori bacteria, right? That was what they've said forever was the cause of ulcers, right? Some of you that are a little older, and that was the thing, right? You got ulcers, you got H. pylori bacteria. You know what? Newsflash, we all have H. pylori bacteria right now. Well, they find it in the ulcers. Yeah, because bacteria eat dead and decaying tissue. They showed up when the garbage was there. You'd never look at that pile of trash and go, look at all those birds. They brought in a lot of garbage. You wouldn't look and say, look at what those rats brought in. Look at the maggots, look what they brought in. No, they show up after. You don't get cancer. You have a body that's sick, that develops it, that can no longer defend itself from that. You follow? It's a really important distinction to flip your brains around. It's a really important that we have a vitalistic view of the body's ability to heal, or we'll fall down the mechanistic trap looking for the next part to tweak, manipulate, or to, play games with. So, let's get a little more intense if we're not already there. This is in a pharmacology oncology journal. One of my favorite quotes. Cancer is a preventable disease that requires major life. So our number 2 cause of death right now in the United States of America is a preventable disease that requires major lifestyle changes. I mean, it's just every ounce of this is a great thing to read. Only 5 to 10% of all cancer cases can be attributed to genetic defects, whereas the remaining 90 to 95% have their roots in environment and lifestyle. I'm going to read the quote off of here and down there. So Dr. Venter, he's a gene doctor, and he says, genes are absolutely not our fate. They can give us useful information about increased risks of disease, but in most cases, they'll not determine the actual cause of the disease or the actual incidence of somebody getting it. Most biology, best sentence ever, will come from a complex interactions of all the proteins and cells working with environment factors and not driven by the genetic code. So I love it. Everybody deserves to know that. Because once we understand that, then we don't have to worry, what did my mammogram say? Now I can go live like shit for the rest of the year because I don't have anything yet, and I'll show you the lie of that study, right? I'm good. No. You could have cancer. It takes about 12 years for a breast cancer to get the size of my pinky tip. And so that's when they can detect it. So you could be loaded with it. And if your approach to health is, I don't have a symptom yet enough, you've missed the boat. Okay? And so what about heart disease? Many of you probably know Dr. Dean Ornish, right? But Dr. Ornish, studies have shown, or Dr. Esselstein or Dr. Wolfson or cardiologists that are speaking out, studies have shown that changing lifestyle could prevent at least 90% of all heart disease. Thus, the disease that accounts for more premature deaths and costs Americans more than any other illness is almost completely preventable and reversible by simply changing lifestyle. Most people don't appreciate the body's ability to heal. They don't understand that the inside of your stomach is new every 4 days. Your liver rebuilds itself every 6 months. Your brain body, neuroplasticity you were talking about yesterday, right? Very important part. Your bones are constantly turning. I'll give you a quick study. You know, the bone, Fosamax, all that crap. It's just Fosamax. Osteoblast, osteoclast. Osteoclasts eat away the bone. Osteoblasts build the bone. All right, those class of drugs basically just stop the body from breaking down the bone, slow down the class. So now you have old, brittle bone. So that's why it's never shown to reduce chances of fractures, but on a DEXA, it looks a little denser, but it's crappy bone. How do you feel? I think I feel a little bit better. Yeah, because I'm high. It's the same in your world, right? It's all shit. And if you're telling me, but doc, you can't. Well, what about what? Their own studies that say all of it's making us worse? I'll take my chances. I'll roll the dice. Better than that, I'll care for my body the best I can with tools and resources. I'll give it what it needs. I'll do all the things that you guys know about, but we just don't really appreciate that. Now, just really, quickly on chiropractic, just for a second. I don't know if many of you know this, but we took the AMA. We took the AMA to court. We sued them. Right? Antitrust lawsuit, Ferguson. We beat them. And they had to make a public apology because they were trying to destroy chiropractic. We've been thrown in jail. Chiropractors have been thrown in jail for practicing medicine without a license. We said, we don't practice medicine. We have no desire to. We're chiropractors. We don't treat disease. We care for the person. The diagnosis and labeling of treatment of disease, not interested. We focus on health. Somebody lives to be 100. We ask, how do they live? They die at 100. We don't care how they die. But that's medicine's question. How'd they die? I don't give a shit how they died. How do you live? Right? And so this is people protesting out front to get their doctors out of jail. That's people getting adjusted while in jail. This is the most jailed chiropractor in history, where they've had their offices burned down and they've been shot at. I've had my tires slashed outside of my office. I've had threatening phone calls made to me. It's okay. I'll do it because it saved my life. Somebody taught me the truth about health and healing. And we're obligated to do the same. So our focus, and it's a great word, you probably know it, right? Salutogenesis, right? It's this focus on health, promotion. It's saying, the greatest thing I can do for you is not treat, label, diagnose you, but rather simply, right? The fishbowl, you were talking about the river last night, I think, right? The river, yeah, it's a great example. I'm from South Dakota. There's lakes I used to be able to fish in, but now when I go there, there's signs that say, don't eat the fish out of here. Why? Because all the fish one day just woke up and genetics got bad and they're just, no, because we poisoned the lakes. So should we sprinkle more dope on top to make the fish think they're healthier? Fishy fibromyalgia, there's a drug for that. It's so insane. Okay? And so we just focus in my office. I just really don't focus on disease. I just don't. I don't, right? So there's a great term. What did we do? A great kind of metaphor for that, and the clinical word for it is allostasis, allostatic load. It's a great word. It's a great understanding. It's basically you're probably familiar. It's just the burden of, it's all of the burdens that we have and stress on you, tax your body, and then the load of that is what increases your chances of all diseases. Follow? It reduces your resiliency. Okay? And so allostatic, we measure that in our office. It's kind of like the metaphor would be rocks in the backpack. If we're up here and I've got 100 pounds of rocks in my backpack, I don't know if it's going to show up like a headache, like knee pain, like back pain, like sleep issues. I don't know for me, but I'm not going to treat it. I'm going to just help take rocks out of the backpack so that person can heal and function the way they're supposed to. Somebody was talking the other day about, but the doctors want you to tell them something. Like, I'm really good at saying I have no idea. When they say, but I don't finish there. You say, well, what about this? What do you think it's called? I said, I have no idea. What do you think it is? I have no idea. I said, but here's the good news. You don't have to know to heal. Let's just start doing it. Let's get some rocks out of the backpack. All right? And so that stress response, but here's what happens. So when our body's in the stress response, fight or flight, you guys know more about that than me, it makes these changes to our body, which are okay, of course, short in the short term, but long term, there are these things that we call diseases. So the stress response raises blood sugar, but we call that diabetes. No, your body's in a stress response. You think there's a tiger in the room, and so you stop digesting food because you're supposed to, because you got to run. Your immune system goes down because you don't need it right now because your life is in immediate danger. You follow? But when you live in that, which is today's lifestyle, then you never have a chance to recover. You never get back to homeostasis. You never get back into healing, and it's a slow decline over time, and then eventually some disease shows up. Call it whatever one you want. And so our focus is to help reduce the allostatic load, reduce the, quote, stress. I know that's a junk term, but in the kind of the understanding of that. This is a concept of allostatic load, right? All of the things, internal and external, that we know affect this person. We measure it in our office with different questionnaires that give us, pre and post on how to do that. It's all evidence-based, if you will. I don't know, I don't have a whole lot of water for evidence-based sometimes, but use that word, right? America's, and now I'm going to go through this last little bit here, guys. I got about 15 minutes. This is going to get into some functional stuff about just some wellness lifestyle stuff. So here's where we sit. The top vegetable that's eaten in America right now, ketchup, French fries, and iceberg lettuce. That's not a joke. It's literally what they're labeled as. So when your kids at lunch are told, they literally count ketchup as a vegetable. Have you ever looked at ketchup? You know how many, in an average bottle of Heinz ketchup, there's 60 packets of sugar. 60. More than that's in a liter of Coke. That's why ketchup tastes good. Okay, right? 38% of our nutrients in our food because of soil depletion. So the apple of today is not like our grandma's ate, which is a big deal because your body doesn't rebuild itself out of thin air. It rebuilds itself out of the things that you give it. Health is pretty simple in a sense. If we were going to remodel this beautiful room, so you had the greatest designer and the brains of doing all of this, and he showed up to remodel it, but he had really crap material, he or she, they'd be limited. Make it look beautiful. Oh, I can't. You gave me crap to rebuild it with. I'm rebuilding the liver today in your body, Ben, but you're giving me ho-hos and Marlboros to do it with. Sorry. And then we say, what's wrong? I don't feel good, right? So 90% of Americans are lacking key nutrients. All right, here you go. Strawberry milk. I think this is Burger King. I don't know. That is literally the chemical compound of that. There's no strawberries and there's no milk in that strawberry milkshake. I won't even try to read those words. And then we wonder. ADD, ADHD, I know there's experts in that in this room that teach on that. They have evidence that shows one of the greatest attributors to that is artificial colorings. The reds, the dyes, right? Red 5, yellows, blues. Red's one of the worst. So when we look at food, a better way to consider it, when we look at food, is nutrient density, not calories. I'll give you one example. You'd have to eat 14 bowls of oatmeal to get the same nutritional equivalent of a bowl of spinach. Start thinking, you don't have to worry about calories, you don't have to count calories, you don't have to do that. That's a man-made phenomenon, that's a man-made concept. Now, if you eat 9,000 and you eat 4, you're going to lose some weight. But what you need to be worried about is the nutritional density. If it was only about calories, then just don't eat, just drink water and you'll be fine. No, you won't. You'll eventually die. You need nutrients in your body. That's what matters. Your body doesn't run on calories. Your body doesn't rebuild itself from calories. Your body rebuilds itself out of nutritional elements, the foundational elements of life. So this is just and it was what you'd imagine. I mean, at the bottom of the list is, your soda pops and your white breads and your, French fries. At the top of the list, nutritional is, things that you'd imagine. What happens, though, is when our bodies are junked up, it affects our cells at the cellular level. Now, you don't feel that because we got trillions of them. By the time you feel it, it's often too late. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's important to understand. So do not base your health just on how you feel, just on symptoms, okay? Now, I'll give you a quick example. Many of you are probably familiar with the benefits of vitamin D, but this is an important example for us. So Vitamin D, even though I live in sunny Florida, most people are still vitamin D deficient because their bodies are covered. We work indoors. All right, so hard to see. I can send this to you. But what this is looking at, I'm going to move over here for a second. So this is cancers all combined. Breast cancer, ovarian, colon, non-Hodgkin's, type 1 diabetes, fractures, falls, multiple sclerosis, heart attacks, kidney cancer, endometrial cancer. And what they're finding is if you get your serum levels of vitamin D in this range, it reduces your risks of those associated by that percent that you see. So for example, 83% reduction in breast cancers if you have your blood levels of vitamin D at 50. My wife's mom had breast cancer, right, when she was 39 years old. Right? She's a breast cancer survivor. My wife is 43. My wife's not worried about what a mammogram may or may not say. Matter of fact, she's never had one. She's not planning on having one. Her way she's caring for her health is by making sure she's giving her body what it needs. Your body builds cancer cells every single day. The best scientists in the world say you make between 1,000 and 10,000 cancer cells every single day. But if your body is functioning normally, it destroys them. Other research says on average, you have 6 major cancers in your lifetime that you heal from that you don't even know. Your body's a cancer killer. It's the best chemotherapy there is, and it's doing it as we sit here. But if we don't appreciate that, then we live in fear, we get freaked out, we go, what is that? And we go in and we fall into the lie, and we think we did everything that we could. No, we didn't. So yeah, take a 37-cent vitamin or go lay naked outside. I don't care. Pick your thing, all right? I don't know if I need to go over those. You guys know these. This is the bit more mental health stuff, right? I mean, the studies published relating to, nutrition, relating to movement, physical activity effect. You guys are well aware of that. I want to talk about sugar for a second. This is whatever it is for, you see so many women in my office. I mean, if they come in my office between 35 and 50, chances are they're on antidepressant. It's just, it breaks my heart for these women, right? Men, it's testosterone. Every damn guy is shooting himself up with this crap like it's the second coming. When I took my dad to cancer clinic in Mesa, Arizona, a natural cancer clinic, his testosterone was 0. 10 days later, it was 641. Not from a shot. He moved his body. He put nutrition in. He had the detox. My dad was a lifetime alcoholic, drank from before I was born, okay, right? And heavy. He was committed, right? Big bottle of vodka every single day. You know the big ones, the handles, 1.75 bottle? He drank that every single day. So when he stopped doing that, his body was like, this is pretty great. I might be able to actually get something done here, Terry, right? Sugar ingestion drops a man's testosterone by 25%. You guys know this, but I think for perspective, 1822, on average, the amount of sugar a person was having was about a can of Coke every 5 days. This study's actually a little bit old, 2012. That's now to 175 pounds of sugar per person per year. Why does it matter so much? Sugar and cancer. We've known this for a while, right? Nobel Prize winner. Cancer, above all other diseases, has countless secondary causes. But even for cancer, there's one prime cause. Summarized in a few words, the prime cause of cancer is the replacement of respiration of oxygen in normal cells by fermentation of sugar. You know what one of the big fancy treatments my dad did at the Natural Cancer Center was? They shoved oxygen in his nose and put him on an exercise bike. Whoa. And I don't mean that against them. I mean, because it's powerful. Because it's powerful. Because it's powerful. Okay? So we got Thanksgiving coming up. What people don't realize, that's how much sugar is in that meal right there. We're so used to this idea of, sugar packets or pouring it in my coffee. Refined carbs, the way we process our foods. Stuff breaks down within 4 seconds in your body. That bun right there, that's more sugar. There's more sugar in a piece of white bread than a Snicker bar. There's more sugar in a glass of orange juice and a Mountain Dew. So your breakfast is a piece of toast or a bagel the size of your face, right? And a big glass of orange juice. You just had three Snicker bars and 3 more. I was doing a talk one time and I was showing how much sugar is in orange juice and a stack of cookies next to it. And the guy comes up after and goes, awesome, I'll just eat the cookies then. Right? It's like, oh man, you missed it, right? So this is where we sit regarding, I'm just showing this for example, this is the amount of sugar that's in these typical drinks. I had a woman come into my office the other day struggling with rheumatoid arthritis. She carried in a Mountain Dew, a 20-ounce Mountain Dew, 77 grams of sugar 77 grams. That's a lot of sugar, folks. And I said, hey, can I talk to you about this for a second? She said, yeah. And I said, hey, here's my concern. And your body can only use 2 of these packets of sugar at any given time. So the rest gets stored as fat, causes inflammation in your body. She goes, inflammation? I said, yeah. She goes, this can cause inflammation? I said, yeah. And she goes, I was just at my doctor yesterday, my rheumatologist, and my rheumatologist told me that my diet has nothing to do with it. I said, great. If it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth, then tell him you're going to stop taking his fucking dope too. If it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth, then don't take the drugs that they tell you have to take or you're going to die. If it doesn't matter what goes in here, then your drugs are crap as well. But if you're trying to tell me that that pill's going to affect my health, then you sure better believe the food that I put in there matters, and my body rebuilds itself out of that, so keep your crappy opinions to yourself, right? Consuming 10 teaspoons of sugar reduces your immune system by up to 50% even for 5 hours. So we're not entering flu season, we're entering sugar season, right? Holiday parties, Halloweens, crap, food, more indoors, whatever, right? So our immune systems are depleted, and we're more susceptible. It's not hard. High sugar is associated with violent criminal behavior, poor learning, memory, anxiety, depression, suicidal tendencies, homicide, all of these things. Great study they did at a troubled teen, probably you guys know more about this, but a troubled school, like a challenged kids, school, and one of the main things they did there was just change their diet, gave them healthy food, fruits and vegetables for lunch, and they watched the fighting and the, things like that in the hallways. It went to zero by just giving these kids good nutrition. Toxins. Your body absorbs about 5 pounds of makeup or chemicals per year. Most women that are having hormonal issues, I see so many women right now that have thyroid problems. Every woman and their dog is told they got a thyroid problem. What happens? Just one day your thyroid wakes up and goes, I don't know, been working pretty good for 43 years. I don't know what to do anymore. I guess I'm done. There's a cause to that. Most of the time it's poisoned from the chemicals that we've put in our body that mimic certain estrogens and other receptors. They go attack, also linked to autoimmune diseases. A lot of that's coming from the toxins that we're putting inside of our bodies. It absorbs through your skin. They just came out, July, a JAMA article came out in July talking about sunscreen. Some of you maybe have seen it. I'll give you exactly what they said. They said that we know now we're admitting that the chemicals which are carcinogenic that go in, they soak right into your skin within seconds. Within 38 seconds. They rub sunscreen on your skin, you can draw blood out of your toes, and you can find the chemicals of the sunscreen you put on your skin that are linked to things like cancer. Really disruptive in women, little girls, linked to leukemia in boys. Here was their quote. They said, when we approved these, we assumed that did not soak into your skin. These are the chemicals that are in our common household supplies, right? This number's there's 84,000 of them. Most of them have never been tested. They haven't even been updated. I don't have time to talk about that. That's my dad, holding his paperwork for his cancer going away. Deborah Davis, if you haven't read this book, it's worth it. It's a few years old. I think she's Columbia. It's a real simple book. She calls it The Secret History on the War on Cancer. She's like, we know what causes cancer. We just spend all the time on the treatment of it. We know what causes cancer, I mean, in a sense, right? But we just spend all the time on the treatments of it. And she said that's backwards. 95% of all cancer is due to accumulation of diet. That's Columbia. Here you go. Obesity triples the risk of breast cancer in women. Antibiotic use increases the risk of breast cancer in women. You don't see that commercial. When you see the pink ribbon, right, on the bucket of chicken from KFC. That's not a joke. It's true. New England Journal of Medicine. Even though we spent $30 billion on research and treatment since 1970, cancer remains undefeated with death rates not lower but higher. Low-dose aspirin, no, you saw that maybe a year or two ago. They said, oh yeah, sorry, that we never really, that wasn't true. You don't have to take that. Doubles the risk of cancer, Journal of Cancer, 2005. Increase your risk of pancreatic cancer by 68%. That's done on the nurses study, one of the largest running studies that we have. We've been following a large group of nurses for about 20 years. So you mean the daily aspirin that you told me to take so I don't have a heart attack caused me to have pancreatic cancer? Yeah. 75% of oncologists said they wouldn't take the cancer or the same treatment they give to their patients. When I was at that natural cancer clinic, I was sitting outside of the window. I wasn't eavesdropping. It's just the way the place was set up, and the window was open. There was a guy in there. He was the president of a hospital with his wife. His wife had breast cancer. And he said to the doctor, I would never let my wife be treated at the hospital that I run. I would never let my wife be treated at the hospital that he's the president of. This is a great study. I won't go through it, but when they took all the data, they found out that they literally said it's breast cancer. And there was a group that did the traditional, mammograms, and another group that didn't do that, didn't have the regular screenings, and the group that did better than the group that had the regular screenings. And when they crunched all the data, they said the only way we can account for this is breast cancers just go away on their own many times. Journal of American Medical Association, exercise reduces your chance of over 13 different cancers. This is a crazy study. This is all of the chemotherapy. This Clinical Oncology Journal. When you add it all up, the success rate of chemo is 2.1%. It's a pile of shit. Excuse my language again, right? I got 2 minutes left here, you guys, and then we'll do a couple questions. So one of the tests I like to do in my office, we do HRV, heart rate variability. It's a measurement of the balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerve system. It's a great predictor of allostatic load. We'll just end there. So what I see is a group of people, patients, public, that's been deceived. They just don't know. I was texting somebody last night, of course, because I learned a lot of awesome things yesterday, so I'm sending slides to my friends, and oh my gosh, and you got to read this book and this, and one of them wrote back, and they said, something like, this is criminal, right? Everybody should know this stuff, right? And I said, I agree, and it's up to us to tell them. And I know that's what this group is doing, and I'm honored and truly honored to be able to be here this weekend. I will be back, and I'll bring a bunch of my friends if I can bring them as well. But thank you guys for having me, and I look forward to the rest of the day.